wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut ties with all the lies that you've been living in. And if you do not want to see me again, I would understand. I would understand. The angry boy, a bit too insane, icing over a secret pain. You know you don't belong. You're the first to fight, you're way too loud. You're the first to light on a burial shroud.
Today we are going to talk about nature versus nurture. The first part, nurture, has two aspects to it: positive nurturing and negative nurturing. Positive nurturing is positive nurturing from adults towards children and the reaction to the positive nurturing. Negative nurturing is the opposite. It's negative nurturing from adults towards the children and the reactions from that negative nurturing.
And next we'll be talking about nature, and then there's two aspects that we'll be talking about that, and it's isolation with animals or just complete isolation. And both those we're going to be talking about the habits they formed after isolation with animals or near animals, and then with complete isolation. And then we're going to talk about genes, and we're going to see if a child's genes affects how they grow up or how they act towards others.
Alright, next we are going to talk about environmental effects. Environmental effects is how children's surroundings affect them. Environmental effects can be seen in children growing up in the ghetto or the rich part of town, because their surrounding environments affect them differently. In our Think Sociology book, Nurture proposes that our environment influences the way we think, feel, and behave.
In our Think Sociology book, Nature Theory states that genes we get from our parents at conception are the primary cause of human behaviors.
To go into more detail about environment, kids that grow up with positive environments around them usually have a more positive life than those growing up in a negative environment, such as kids in the ghetto that have an abundance of worries.
Now to go into more about genes. Genes are what someone has no control over, and many believe this causes people to act differently. People have no control on what genes they get, and they receive their genes at conception.
I'm going to talk about nurture, which goes along the lines with environment. We're going to talk about two aspects of nurture, which we mentioned before. They are positive nurturing and negative nurturing. Positive nurturing usually has the outcome of happy children. Positive nurturing takes place when an adult shows positive verbal and physical action. Now, negative nurturing usually has angry children as its outcome. Negative nurturing takes place when an adult shows verbal or physical anger towards the child.
There are different types of nature happenings, and the most two common are complete isolation and isolation with animals. In both cases, if the subject is isolated for a shorter time, it will be easier to socialize and teach them to speak, read, and write. Subjects completely isolated don't learn to do things correctly. For example, eating, going to the restroom, and speaking. Subjects isolated with animals will more than likely act like the animal. For example, if the subject was isolated with dogs, the subject would most likely crawl on all fours and eat the same food dogs do.